All right, here we are for 7 o'clock principal coffee. I don't know why I call them coffees anymore, but that's the popular name. And today we're going to talk about the Wellness Warriors Initiative. You're going to learn a lot about um, what it is, what we're talking about, and I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. And again, as people come in, I'll get a little ding, and I'll hop into the room uh, and make sure I keep getting people inside. It'll slow me down maybe a little bit to let people in, but I want to make sure everybody gets in that can. So tonight I'm going to be talking about what is called the Wellness Warriors Initiative. It's an initiative uh, put together by the cooperation of our Summerfield Charter Academy Board of Directors and our parent leadership team, and as part of the um, school leadership and administration is certainly supportive of it myself. So this is not something that I'm not supportive of. So what we're going to do is tell you about the opportunity that we have, how we've tried to help the community that we have existing, and then what exactly is the Wellness Warriors Initiative? What will it mean for students and for parents and for staff members as we go through here, just in starting up here in a couple of weeks on September the 26th. So, the first part is the opportunity that we began to see that we needed to search for what we thought was some help in some areas. If you've been around the school for a while, you realize that we went through the pandemic together, and it was an extremely unusual time, as you might remember. So it was really, really very interesting time. In fact, this is very similar to what the pandemic was like. I did host some parent meetings just like this in the evenings, and we talked about different things that was happening as a school, and I was doing it right here from my home, that's where I'm at right now. I'm in my office. Um, but as we came out of the pandemic, we began to see some challenges with some of our scholars. The first thing we saw was a real increase in a lack of emotional control. And what we mean by that is that things that used to not bother students, maybe small things, they could not keep their emotional control over something that really should be a very minor situation. One of the most famous that I can remember is that someone's pencil lead broke. That happens all the time at school. But this student, because of that pencil and that pencil lead breaking, lost kind of the emotional control of himself, had to be calmed down and helped and assisted to get back to work. Uh, Students came back from the pandemic with a real lack of emotional control. A lot of places were seeing this. It wasn't just Summerfield Charter. Um, the time that we had in the pandemic was tough for everyone as we made decision after decision after decision. Um, the story that I remember the most was one day I'm sitting at home just like this. I'm having meeting after meeting after meeting online just like this. And I had like 10 minutes between my last meeting and my next meeting. I was so tired of sitting inside and sitting in my chair. I think I'm going to go stand outside. So I walked outside with my dog, and as I'm standing there, it starts to rain. And so I'm like, just my luck, right? So I'm standing there, and it's just raining, and I literally just stood there in the rain for like 5 minutes or so, just standing there. It wasn't raining that hard, but I'm like, I don't want to go back in there and go back on my computer to do this anymore. And I just stood there in the rain. I often think if my neighbors were, looking out the window at me, they would probably say, "Boy, he's finally lost it." And so I stood there in the rain. So I understand uh, how we came back from that pandemic different, and students really had a real loss of emotional control. Emotional outbursts were on the rise. I'm not talking about just a little emotional outburst, but I mean a real lack of control of your emotions, raised voices, um, things like that from our scholars. We really saw that. happening, we were like, wow, where's this coming from? How can we help this particular student, maybe in this particular situation, find that control of themselves, and how can we help that? And then across the pandemic, we really saw a rise in teacher stress. If you're tracking anything about education, we're in a real teacher shortage crisis. People are leaving the profession and stepping away from it, especially in large numbers since the pandemic has come to an end. Very few people are coming into the profession from a professional training college point of view. And so, what has happened since the pandemic? The pandemic caused quite a load of stress on teachers, but since the pandemic, we saw teachers increased, the stress load on them increased significantly, and many of them began to step away. So I'm very thankful for the group of great teachers we have at SCA and how they are taking care of our scholars. And so I'm really happy with them. But it's been really difficult, and we saw an increase in parent stress. We saw parents trying to navigate what was happening with their scholars at home, what was happening with their scholars at school, and what was happening all over the world, really, as we emerged from the pandemic. And we began to think, let's study this a little bit, because people came back from the pandemic different. And that's my word. It's not a technical term, and it's certainly not a clinical term. It's just the word I use. People are different. And so we want to have some way to try to begin to address the differences that we saw. So we began to do a little study and into some of the things that we were seeing. The National Institute of Health put out this information regarding, I thought someone wanted to come in, but that's okay, regarding how students were reacting to distress coming out of the pandemic. And they saw a real increase in it. And for students who are experiencing mild distress, now mild distress can be any number of things, right? There's quite a bit of things that can be mild distress. But once students begin to fall into that mild distress, no matter what the cause of the distress, these are some of the things they began to see happening with those students. They saw grades falling. They saw excessive absences. We saw a real dramatic increase in chronic absenteeism from students. Now, some of that was related to the pandemic, with mandatory mandatory absences, and having to be out for so many days because you had COVID or were close contact to COVID. But there were also people who were not sick, who had increasingly number of excessive absences. We saw changes in interactions with other students, the way students reacted to each other, the words students would use to talk with each other. When we were in the pandemic, you had the internet between you and another person, but now we're back in person, and it's almost like they didn't have that filter anymore. And changes in motivation and attention to task. They couldn't work very hard. They didn't want to concentrate very long. And these are some general things that we saw with people who are just in mild distress. But if somebody's in a moderate distressful situation, uh, and we saw examples of all this. We saw repeated requests for extensions on homework. Why? Because things weren't getting done on time. Pushing the boundaries of classroom rules. When you're at home on your computer, you can do and behave in different ways that you can't when you're with a group of 20-something students in a classroom. And so they wanted to push those boundaries. Now, again, this is not every scholar that comes through our doors, but we saw this increasing. Unusual, exaggerated emotional responses. We talked earlier about emotional control over things as small as that pencil lead breaking, or all kinds of different stress factors that are on students now that never were before. And then depressed demeanor that's often isolated or withdrawn. They didn't want to interact with other people. They didn't want to be inviting or happy or friendly to other people. They were happy to be alone. And that's just moderate signs of distress. Now, if somebody is in actual severe distress, and again, the reason we're in distress right now is secondary. Obviously, some things would lead to severe distress with a student. But what we were finding is that some items that really shouldn't lead to severe distress were leading to that. And we saw these types of things: highly disruptive behaviors, inability to communicate clearly. You can even ask a student, "Why did you make that choice?" "I don't know why I made that choice." Not being able to clearly say what is really on their mind. "Why are you upset?" "I don't know why I'm upset. I just know I'm upset." Threats to harm others. We saw more students threatening other students. We saw more students using um, slurs of all different types towards each other. Uh, and we wanted to make sure we did our best to address this. Overtly suicidal thoughts, anger, irritability, and increased interpersonal difficulties. Getting along with each other got a lot harder. Marked changes in personal hygiene. We had a student. I know that he came back from um, being away at the pandemic, and he had grown out his hair so much that it covered almost down to his nose, and he was just kind of hiding behind his hair. And he really was like that on purpose. Um, And so we saw all of these types of examples. I could give you examples of almost every one of these characteristics that the National Institute of Health lists. And now that we're even more than, I don't know what the official date of the ending of the pandemic is, but now that we're a year or a whole school year or more later, last school year, we still saw some of these behaviors in our scholars who really wanted to reach out and to do our best to try to address them, because those types of things lead to these statistics. 1 in 6 U.S. youth aged 6 to 17, that covers the entire age bracket practically of Summerfield Charter Academy, experience a mental health disorder each year. Doesn't mean they have a mental health disorder, doesn't mean they're going through one, but they experience one in some form or fashion, either personally, at home, school. They are dealing with mental health challenges, even as young as 6. Another stat: 50% of all lifetime mental illnesses begin at age 14. That's about the age of our 8th graders. And age 14 is when they're almost officially diagnosed, but they actually begin earlier than that. It's a real challenge. It's a real thing. The mental and emotional health of our scholars, of our teachers, of our parents need to be addressed. But our scholars specifically, and this one hits home here: suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 14. Now, we're fortunate that not a lot of people aged 10 to 14 pass away, and so suicide can be that. But um, if you're up on local stories, you know, the suicide from the girl in Stokes County, very very moving and difficult to understand. Uh, we really wanted to intervene and look for ways to intervene because of the opportunities we see with our scholars. So, with our community, with our teachers especially, we began to put together trainings and things for our teachers with the help of NHA and others. So, take a look here. This is an increase in training for our staff members. These are the things that they now have to train on prior to school starting. Take a look at that list: dating violence, concussions, student alcohol, substance misuse, cyberbullying, de-escalation, self-harm. That's a lot of topics, and that's only about half of them. Student mental health, bloodborne pathogen exposure, human trafficking awareness, child abuse, and youth suicide. this is 9 to 10 hours of trainings that our staff has to go through just so they can be a teacher and work at our school. This is an incredible list that we have to, and this is trying to help our community, trying to help our teachers be prepared, trying to help our teachers be able to spot things in our scholars. But although these are important and actually reflect on being a teacher, it is not reading, math, and arithmetic at all. It is not how to better explain a reading passage or to help with a difficult math problem. And it was really asking our teachers to become experts in things that they really just can't be experts in. So there's no way for our staff, as great as they are, to be experts in all of this. There just isn't. And so we really began to search for some way to offer our staff, our scholars, and our community, our parents, some help. So we want to equip our scholars. Larry Thompson, the author of the book, Responsibility Centered Discipline, likes to say he never wants his students to not feel capable of solving their own problems. Now, a part of being capable is also knowing when to ask for help. But we wanted to equip our scholars so that they can have some tools to address some of the challenges that we are seeing. We also wanted to equip our staff, not just have another training, but to equip ourselves in two ways. One, their own personal mental health and wellness is extremely important. They spend multiple hours, 6-7 hours a day, working with those young people. And they really do need to be prepared mentally, emotionally to do that. And so how can we help them? But we also wanted to be able to equip them to help their students when they struggle. Something that you may be finding in all of our classrooms this year is a calm down corner. It may not be called the calm down corner. Teachers are calling it different things, but an area in the classroom that when a student is experiencing something emotionally, mentally, and they need a moment to go sit and calm down and be quiet, there's a spot in the room for that. And it's that person is there, they're able to sit and be quiet and take a moment to themselves. They're not interrupted, they're not pushed by the teacher. Teacher will come by and check on them. Hey, are you okay? Do you want to talk? All of that. But it gives them that opportunity because we wanted our staff to be able to equip that for our scholars. And well, we want to help you as well. We know that the people that what we are experiencing at school, you experience at home as well. And so we wanted to find some type of program, something that could teach us skills and help us not only improve our own, say, mental health and mental wellness, but provide these opportunities for our scholars and our staff and our families. And so one day we got an email from one of our parents. So this is the story of how we found the Oaks. One of our parents serves on the board of directors of the counseling community called the Oaks Community. She sent us an email, said, hey, I know you guys are kind of looking for this. The Oaks does things in schools to help students and parents and teachers equip themselves to work and to deal with mental health, emotional health issues with their scholars and with each other. And we thought, okay, well, let's set up a meeting. So we had a meeting with that parent, another parent who works for the Oaks, and then the executive director of the Oaks, Allison Brown, came to the school and met with myself and I think all three of our deans. And we began to hear about their program that they call the Wellness Warriors, where they actually go into schools and bring in counselors to present information to students on how to take care of your emotional and mental wellness. And so we took their information, we did some research on our own, and then we called and asked Alicia to come back and meet with us again. and said, explain what you would do, explain how you would do it on a large scale like our school, because this is one of the biggest projects they've taken on, and how that would work. And she began to explain it. And then we began to search for the funds. And that's where our board of directors and our parent leadership team come into play, as they have split the cost to bring this program to our school for this school year. We took it to both of those organizations. So this is what we'd like to do, and but we need the funding to do it. And they took a look at the program themselves, did their own research as well, and decided to both split the cost to bring this to our community. So that's how we found the Oaks. And so now I'm going to take a minute to explain to you what exactly we'll be doing. So the Wellness Warriors Initiatives is put on by the Oaks community. You can see this is their logo, and I've shown it to you because this is also their wellness wheel. And what they want to do is come in and teach our scholars how to use this particular wellness wheel. And many places who do emotional and mental wellness type things have this type of thing now. They may not use the same words, but some of them are very similar. But this is the one that they developed. And they'll come in and teach our students this wheel and which one of these pieces might be more important to our scholars than others. And the 8, if you can't see it clearly on your screen, there are 8 spokes, if you will, on their wellness wheel: spiritual strength, mental wellness, life skills, exercise, rest, physical work, thriving community, and nutrition. So they teach this wellness wheel, and how even as young people, as young as 8 years old in 3rd grade, can think through ways to help themselves improve their mental wellness, and knowing that I need to make sure I get to bed on time so I can get my rest. I need to make sure that I am getting enough exercise. Now, maybe when you're 8, that's not near as important as when you're not 8 anymore, like me. I know I need to get to be more physically active to make sure that I'm as sharp as I need to be. So each one of these different spokes represents a different area of your life that you might want to make sure you're paying attention to. And so we want to teach our scholars that this is the type of thing we want you prepared for and looking at. So what the Oaks community is that there are licensed counselors, professionals who recognize the need for a strategic relational approach to the many challenges facing individuals. Counseling is their number one piece of what they do in their community. They have a location out in Pleasant Garden. They have people who come there. They employ a group of professional counselors who counsel and work with people in individual and small group basis. This school part of what they're doing now is sort of an extension of that. I know personally, of course, I know more people now because I've met them. Alicia Brown, the executive director, was a school guidance counselor for several years in, I believe, a middle school here in Guilford County. One of the other counselors used to be a teacher for me at Greensboro Academy, and then she became a counselor and has spent time as a school counselor, and now works for the Oaks. And another person is a parent who works there. I think she's more working in the office with them. So we know people are there, and these are professional counselors who will be coming to us to present this material. And this is kind of what it looks like. Here's the different things. There's 4 points here that they plan to do. One, the biggest point is for our scholars. 2 of them are for our staff, and then 1 for our parents. The Parent Wellness Workshop. That's going to be October the 2nd. Don't worry, we got another slide to tell you more about that. That's where we're inviting all our parents to come. It'll be in our gym. You'll get a handout, and it'll be led by the people from the Oaks. And it'll be talking to you about that wellness wheel that they have and how you can, for yourself, monitor your own personal wellness, but how you can also help your students and your scholar monitor that as well. That's October the 2nd. The staff wellness development comes in two parts: the introduction, which we had back in August before school started, and then the Wheels and Windows workshop, which is for staff a little later in October during one of our professional development days. They're going to give a 4-hour session to our staff. And that the main focus of both of these sessions is for the teachers and the staff members themselves to develop and work on their own health and wellness. But it also coincides with what we're going to be doing in the classroom. The Wellness Warriors 12-week curriculum piece is, and the student wellness kits, that's where they'll be actually coming into the school. There will be 3 mental health counselors that come to our school. This is going to happen on Tuesdays, starting in just a couple of weeks. And they'll spend 30 minutes in a classroom setting with the teacher in the building, in the room, teaching different aspects of mental health and mental wellness and emotional stability, and ways that you can monitor that and enhance it with what you're doing as a scholar. That's the stated goal. And I want to show you more about that program here in just a second. So they're going to start that in September, and they'll run all the way through December. And then the interactive wellness courses are actually another thing our staff can take advantage of, their online courses that they can work through for themselves and to help them with their scholars. So the Wellness Warriors campaign, all of our students will get this particular, this is like the front cover and the index of the, or the table of contents of the Wellness Warriors book that our students will be getting. And they will work through all 12 of these lessons over the course of that 12-week program. Each classroom will have their own mental health. Let me give you a caveat that. This is for 3rd grade and up. And I'll tell you more about why it's for 3rd grade and up here in just a minute. But each one of our classrooms at that grade level will stop on a Tuesday for 30 minutes. And the mental health counselor will be in there presenting these 12 different topics. And I'll kind of walk through them with you right quick. So I want to make sure you are informed as a parent. Number one's the introduction to the Oak Wellness Wheel. They'll get an explanation of those different spokes and be talked to about how which one of these spokes are really important to you and how you might want to make sure you're feeding that particular spoke. The power of healthy habits. Lots of different healthy habits that we might ask them to consider. Life skills like scheduling and skill scheduling and study spaces, and how it's in, for example, at home, to have a place for you to do your homework where it is quiet, where there's the right amount of light, where you're not interrupted constantly. At home on the couch in front of the TV with your favorite show going, probably not the best atmosphere for you to do that. So the power of movement in week 4. You can see they label these with life skills, exercise, nutrition, sleep and rest, and then mental health and community. So the power of movement and exercise, fueling our brains and bodies. They'll talk a little bit about brain development and how eating right can help with your brain development, and making sure you get enough sleep and rest helps with your brain. If you have middle schoolers, good gracious, they want to stay on their phones, they want to stay on their games, they do all kinds of things, and they think, I'll get enough sleep. And they won't. Middle school students probably need more sleep than our elementary school students because of the way their body is changing and reacting and moving. And yet they probably don't get enough sleep. And they'll be talking about brain breaks, sleep zones, and things to fuel your body by resting properly. Emotions and coping skills. We've talked a little bit about that in the presentation, and how to identify your emotions and identify when you might need some coping strategies to overcome those stresses. Stress and thinking. Stinking thinking is more along the lines of the way you think about yourself and having negative thoughts about yourself and how you can change that. The power of people, power of being around people and the community of people, how you can draw from that. The art of communication. And this is really talk about how you can communicate about how you may be feeling, what you may be experiencing, being able to put words to it so that you can get the help that you may need, even if the help is simple from your teacher, or maybe you might need some professional type helps. And then perseverance and resiliency, working through all this, and then celebrating our time together for 12 weeks. So those are the 12 topics that they'll actually talk, and the counselor, the mental health counselor, will lead these topics. Each one of our scholars will have a book. Each one of the books has 12 chapters in it. It has material for them to take notes in, to write down things, to answer certain questions about, to make plans for themselves. All this material they will be able to bring home and show you as a parent. This is absolutely nothing we're trying to hide from you. We just want to make sure that it's back in the classroom on Tuesdays. So, because the next week we're going over this again. So it's really important that they have this, and those are the 12 topics that they will take them through. Now, give me a little more nuts and bolts about it. It's going to start on Tuesdays. It's going to run from September 26th to December the 11th. So almost all the first half of the school year. You're starting in just a couple of weeks. It'll be 3rd through 8th grade. And the reason it's only 3rd through 8th grade right now is that when we were putting this program together for our school, the Oaks had not really written a K2 curriculum yet. So they weren't fully prepared to do it K2. So we wanted them to do it 3rd through 8th grade because that's what they have done. That's what has been proven, and we know that what we're going to get there. And if we think really highly of this, it's not out of the realm of possibility to think, well, you know what, we really want to see this continue and help our K2 students as well. So whether or not have a parent or if you have a scholar in 3rd through 8th grade, you parents of all of our parents will be invited to the parent workshop coming up on October the 2nd. They'll spend 30 minutes in each class, so it's a short lesson. It's not a very long lesson. And you see it's going to be focused on one of those 12 topics, led by that mental health professional or mental health clinical counselor will actually be in the room. The teacher will also be in the room. So this is really a we experience. The teacher and the classroom and the counselor all going through and working on these things together, not anyone in isolation. So I think that's really important. So that's kind of the outline of what our scholars will be doing. The parent program, which is October 2nd at 6:30, it's about an hour to an hour and a half, and it's going to be in person at the school in our gym. We'll be sending out pretty soon an invitation to everyone, and we'll ask you to RSVP so we can make sure we have enough material, enough seats, enough spaces for people who want to come. Again, you don't have to have a K2 or 3-8 scholar to come. Everybody's welcome. So it'll be led by the Oaks and their mental health counselors. So I'm not leading it. I will turn it over to them and let them walk you through what they want to walk you through in developing both your own personal wellness capacity as well as helping with your students. So that's really a two-pronged. It's designed to help you as a parent, but it's also designed to help you personally as well. So again, that's October the 2nd, 6:30. We will spend lots more time talking about that. And then for the staff, we want to know, so you can know what we're doing. They had a 1-hour induction prior to school starting. That was back in August. They'll have a half day, 4 hours of training in late October during our very first professional development day. And again, this will really be focused on helping our teachers develop their own personal wellness, as well as being able to use this program for our scholars. And that's what that says, designed to help our teachers that way. So that's the big overall view of what the Wellness Warriors Initiative is, who's going to be leading it, when it's going to start. It's going to be inter-classrooms, 12 weeks, starting September the 26th through December 11th, I think. So I'm going to stop now for questions. I'm going to quit presenting for just a moment. Come back to the room. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box. I don't see any in there right now, but I'm happy to answer questions. We want to make sure that all of our parents are aware and know what's happening. Well, we want you to know what we're doing, who's doing it, who's leading it, and what our scholars are hopefully going to get out of it, and what our staff can get out of it, and what you can get out of it as well as a parent. So I'm very excited about this program. I think it really has the potential to really meet some real needs that we're seeing at the school, amongst our scholars, amongst our families, and even amongst our staff members. So I'm excited about what the Oaks is going to bring us. Questions or thoughts?
I'm typing one in the chat box, but I can say it aloud if that's easier.
Okay.
Okay, so I first want to say this is a great idea and I appreciate it, because one of my concerns over the years is that there has not been a school counselor, and I understand that might be just kind of like an NHA way. I'm not quite sure, but I think the concern that I have is what is the long-term plan for SCA and for students, because this is through December, and I'm just curious to know what's going to happen after December.
Well, there's a couple of different things. We don't have necessarily financially a long-term plan to sustain, say, bringing in a counselor full time. But we'll be working with our counseling assistance really comes from our school social worker, who's part-time at our school. But we're also, that's another reason we're heavily investing in the training of our staff along the lines with this, because they're the ones who are going to be on the front lines, those teachers. And they will be able to take some of those assessments, make recommendations to our school social worker. And if we need to move farther down help, we would now have at least a relationship with a place called a counseling service like the Oaks that we can refer people to, and we can even help them get to. So it's pretty limited, and it's why we were looking for a program that really equips us personally more than provides services for our students, because that there's limited financial resources that we can help them with. So that's why we're trying to do this. But we are talking to the Oaks about what do we do if something like this brings up something in a scholar's life that might need longer term care, and what type of resources would they help us with and provide for us, and they would be there to support us. So I wish I could tell you that bringing in a counselor would be full time, all day, and maybe one day we'll get to that. Hopefully, we're trying, but I don't have that supported yet.
That's understood. I think one of the other things you could just think about, just throwing it out there, is at UNCG, they have a community based counseling and consulting clinic
Mm-hmm.
that, after this process or program ends, that could be another connection that you can make, because they do provide, services that are kind of based on income. So, if that were to come up, if, someone needs additional services, that's something that they could be referred to.
Yeah, we're aware of that program, and it's one of the ones that we have in the past recommended to families who might need to be looking for that. The Oaks also provides some income-based type strategies for those who need it as well. So there's resources out there that we would have to use. That's why one of the reasons we're looking for a program that hopefully equips us, not necessarily to handle someone that has a mental health problem in a long term, but be able to at least communicate, develop some language around it, and show that we can help people get on the right track with it. Any other questions? I don't want to keep you any longer here on a Monday night. I know that kickoff's about 30 minutes away, so I've still got time to get my snack in and be ready for kickoff here in a little bit. But maybe that doesn't not on your agenda for tonight, and I completely understand that. I appreciate that comment there. I do. So if there's not any other questions, I'll give you one quick launch. We call this a launch to send you out. If you wonder why I say the same thing at the end of every Sunday night phone call, that's kind of my launch. Have a great night. See you tomorrow at school. I launch us out of school every day with that. And so I have just one little quote for you to think about to launch you out of this meeting. And there's no other questions. You can go ahead and get your Monday evening started. It's from Matt Haig. It says, mental health problems don't define who you are. They're something you experience. You walk in the rain and you feel the rain, but you are not the rain. So as we walk through this journey together, I hope that hopefully we can help our scholars, our staff, and our parents deal with some of the challenges we've been experiencing over the local time. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for being here, being a part of this. And if there's no other questions, I'll stay for just another second. And then I wish you all, again, thank you all for coming. Wish you all a great evening. And have a good night. I'll see some of you tomorrow at school.